I got one of these. That's kind of really pretty.
Slapping high fives and clapping again.
I needed that.
This is Russel Harlow. Russ infected Phil Hellmuth with some pretty bad beats. Side effect, tilt. The prescription, enjoy Phil's beating at the hands of this amateur.
The cannon, ace queen.
Russ has got Phil dominated.
Get him loose.
Here he comes.
Get him loose, cannon.
Russ just calls. 10 queen 6. Harlow top pair.
Phil may run into some resistance if he tries to bluff this one.
He doesn't. He checks.
Let's see if Russ gets aggressive with top pair.
He does, firing 3,200. And that gets Phil to fold. So the cannon picks up his first pot of the night.
How did it feel being in a pot heads up with the greatest living no-limit hold'em player of all time? How did it feel?
And winning.
It was just nice to win. Take down the first one. Let's just play.
Do you have like ace queen or something? Right?
I wish it was that good.
King 7 for the cannon. Raising to 1,300.
Russ might be trying to work that quiet image, or he could just be bored.
Antonio with ace 5 on the button. Re-raises to 4,300, and now action folds back to the cannon.
Antonio has successfully isolated Russ. Now Russ has got a marginal hand and he's out of position.
That's a bad combination in this game.
You're learning every day, Chris Rose.
Russ wants to stick around. He makes the call.
Now the problem is that the pot is bloated and Russ doesn't have a very strong hand.
He does now. King 4 king.
Not a problem anymore. Russ has picked a good time to get loose. Timing is everything.
And Harlow Hollywooding a bit. Fires 5,000.
Russ taking his time may look to Antonio like he's not sure about his hand. I'm not sure if it was intentional, but this half-pot bet is probably going to look weak as well.
Antonio raises to 17-4.
Antonio thinks he can blow Russ off his hand, and a lot of the time he'd be right, just not this time. But right now, Russ is trying to figure out whether he should call or raise.
Just a call.
I like the call, but no matter what he does there, he's going to tip Antonio off that he's got a big hand.
9 of spades on the turn.
Betting would still be Russ's best chance of making some more money here. It's not likely Antonio would keep firing, though it's also not very likely he'd call another bet.
Harlow fires 20,000.
Another bet less than half the size of the pot. It may look weak to Antonio, but at this point he probably knows ace-high isn't the best hand. This would be an awfully gutsy bluff for an amateur.
Antonio's out of here. And the loose cannon, Russ Harlow, picks up a nice-sized pot.
A pot that puts him in the profits.
Nice hand.
Thank you.
Russ Harlow, ace-jack, raises to 1,700. Tony G, 4 high.
Tony's got a pretty weak hand, but he does have position on Russ.
He calls from the button. 9-6 for Mercier in the big blind.
Jason's already got some money in there.
Calls.
Should have been a lot different.
Deuce 5 queen on the flop. Mercier checks.
Russ has been outflopped by the worst hand again.
But he leads out, betting 4,200.
Tony G is almost never folding a pair on this flop to a loose cannon.
He calls and Mercier folds. So from 3 on the flop to 2 on the turn. 4 of hearts. Tony with bottom 2 pair.
This is a terrible card for Russ. Not only does it look like a safe card, but it's going to make it impossible for him to get Tony to fold.
Harlow fires 11,000.
If it weren't for Tony making a second pair here on the turn, this would be a really good double barrel from the cannon, but instead, Russ is in serious trouble.
Tony raises to 30,000.
Since Russ fired twice, Tony probably thinks Russ has more of a decision to make.
I fall.
Harlow folds. And Tony G wins the hand after calling with 4 high. All right, action's folded on over to the loose cannon, King Jack.
King Jack, action's been folded. Pretty easy raise.
Yep, to 1,600. Antonio in the small blind. He re-raises to 4,900. Big blind folds. Action back on over to Harlow.
Antonio could be re-stealing from the small blind, but calling 3 bets with King Jacks is a risky proposition. Even in position, you're going to miss the flop most of the time, and then you're just stuck with King High.
Well, Russ calls.
King Jack is a hand that has awful reverse implied odds, meaning you stand to lose a lot of money when you make a second best hand.
Well, now Russ has got top pair after the Jack Tray 8 flop.
Russ might like his hand for now. We'll have to see what Antonio does.
He bets 8,100.
See, this pot is bloated from the 3-bet pre-flop, and now Russ is facing a big bet here with just 1 pair. The worst part is that if you call here and Antonio bets again, the bets are going to get exponentially bigger.
Obviously, it's not easy sitting in that seat. Russ calls.
Even though it might be an easy call now, the bets are just going to get bigger and bigger.
6 of diamonds on the turn, putting 3 diamonds on the board.
At this point, Russ is probably hoping he doesn't have to face a huge bet here. He can't like the diamond.
Antonio checks.
Antonio slowed down for a second. Since Russ doesn't have a diamond, he should make Antonio pay if he's going to draw to one.
Russ bets 19,000.
Well, my guess is that Antonio doesn't have diamonds or the money would be in already. My guess is also that they'd be in the muck by now if he hated his hand.
All in.
Antonio's all in.
Well, I've narrowed Antonio's hand down to any 2 cards. I wonder how Russ is doing with it. How are all you couch cannons doing? Russ is really being put to the test here. He could very well have the best hand, but there's a lot at stake for Russ. That's almost his whole stack, and Antonio did 3-bet in pre-flop.
Wow, wow, wow. How much more is it, 20?
20,100.
Personally, I think Russ pot committed himself when he made the original bet here on the turn. If he was going to fold to a check raise, he should have just checked behind. Then again, it's not my new minivan on the line.
What a bad bet by me.
Russ folds, and Antonio had the same hand with a king-high flush draw.
Nice hand.
King 10's all right.
Yeah, so we call.
Good luck, boys.
That's cool. I feel good right now.
Rooting for you.
I know.
Jack 7 tray, 3 spades.
Check.
Phil checks. We check.
Check.
Tony checks.
Check.
Ike checks.
4 players.
I like our check. Even if we improve, someone else is likely to improve more.
All right, ace of spades on the turn. That means we've got a flush.
It's a great card for us because now there are also only 2 cards in the deck that beat us, and it's pretty likely someone would have bet one of those already.
6.
Phil makes it 6,000.
I'd say it'd be pretty tough for Phil to bet into 3 people without a spade. But a quick little math here. We're getting 2 to 1, so even if Phil is only going to bet the king, the queen, or the 9 of spades, we'll win 1 out of every 3 times. That gives us the right odds to call.
Well, Russ raises to 15,000. That gets Tony to fold. Ike's out too.
I don't love this raise. All the worst spades are likely to fold out, and a better one likely won't. It's also not too much to protect against. Maybe a set or 2 pair.
I got to tell you, Joe, I'm a little nervous going heads up against Phil.
I wouldn't be.
Phil calls.
Heads up.
You nervous now?
Maybe a little.
The river, the queen of spades.
Check.
Phil checks.
I'm really not scared now. The only card that beats us is the king of spades, and I don't think Phil's got it. My guess is if he did, he'd bet it and not give us the chance to check behind for a cheap showdown. Right now, we should be thinking value bet.
There's only one hand that can call me anyway, so.
Nope, we checked. All right, let's see what Phil's got. Oh, he had 2 pair. We're going to win.
Wow.
Pretty crazy for Phil to bet and call a raise without a spade.
I can't believe it.
Wow.
Wow.
Nice hand.
The cannon is called with just 9 high.
Wow, you guys are just having it out.
Phil's got the cannon dominated.
The flop, ace 8-8 could be real trouble for Russ Harlow.
In the words of Outcast Chris, what's colder than cold?
Ice cold.
That's right, this is an icy cold deck.
Phil fires 3,000.
Russ is in bad shape to win this hand. He really doesn't need to do the Hollywooding here. Still, if he can't get away from this hand, there's a better than 50% chance he'll be on his way home.
That would be back to Connecticut to tuck in his 3 kids.
Raise, make it
Russ
10,000.
raises to 10,000.
Russ is playing it right. This is just unlucky.
Hollywood Hellmuth taking his time.
You raise.
Re-raises to 20,000.
This is a third bet on the flop. Russ might now have to consider that he might be beat. Phil's range is either bluff or the nuts, and Russ has already shown a lot of strength for an amateur. Just don't see how he can get away from this, though.
Mullen.
There's the all-in,
I call.
and Phil calls.
Raise your cards, please.
You got an 8?
Yeah.
I got a 10 kicker.
Let's see.
Looks like a big chance for a chop, but there could be blood.
Okay, should I deal it? Should I do something crazy and deal it a bunch of times?
You should buy insurance.
Well, it's up to him too. I mean, he might only want to do it once.
No, that's one time.
One time. Keep it
All right.
manly.
A 9 would win it for Russ. Jack or higher would chop it. The turn, a 4.
Russ needs a 9 to win it. A 4, an ace, or some paint will chop it.
Let's get it over with.
The river. It's a 9.
Oh my god. What a bad beat that is.
Hey guys, was that good for the game?
I thought about
I think that might have been good for the
Was
game.
that good for the game?
What was that? That was like a 15-1 shot coming in.
Got lucky there.
Nice hand.
I got lucky.
Ace Jack suited.
Russ is on a bit of a heater.
Raise to
Raises to 1,500. Antonio folds.
Did you ever start getting doubts, Phil? Like just maybe I'm not as good as I think?
Raise it up.
Raise.
Phil raising to
It's a
5,100.
good question. It's a valid question.
It's right. I'm really curious. Does he really think he's the best in the world?
3,600
Like
more.
he lies in bed and thinks, you know, maybe I've been wrong, you know.
Cannon calls.
I can't sleep for the whole night. It's frustrating.
The flop,
Well, you can prove today is the best.
7-9 Jack. Both get a piece of it. Phil checks.
Prove it
How do you
right.
think you would rank the 6 players at the table?
Well, he ranked himself
Check.
clear
Harlow checks top pair.
and probably
4 diamonds on the turn.
ranked me last.
11,000.
Bet 11,000.
Then the loose cannon. Then Antonio.
Go.
Harlow calls.
Then Jason. Then you. Second best.
I think he thinks Jason's better than me.
Check.
I don't think he likes me much.
Jack.
And Harlow wins.
Yeah, he does rank people based on how much he likes them. Unfortunate. Wow. There's 15,000 down the slippery slide. You want to build him up, right? You want.
Every pot I play against him, I make it big now.
Well, we're talking about going to the army. He's been there, so you're learning. He's got to teach you a few tricks.
Well, he's won a couple pots.
It's good, right? It's good. You're happy.
Maybe I'll win one in a minute. You like to kick people when they're down, is what you like to do.
I don't want to kick people. This is just a game, Phil.
It's precisely what you're doing. You're
Phil,
kicking me
you're
when I'm
lining
down.
yourself up as the best poker player in the world. You're coming on national television.
Yeah, I know.
Phil, I didn't say you're the best. You're the one saying all the time and abusing players during poker tournaments. You abuse people in a significant, nasty manner.
Cannon raises.
It's just a game, Phil. It's nothing personal. I mean, I just love the.
I just pointed out what you're doing, and for some reason you got all sensitive.
You
I
put
don't know
yourself
why.
up.
Tony calls.
You put yourself up as a.
There's
as,
about 10% of the audience that's watching loves to
Uh-oh.
see you kick me when I'm down. And
it's
about
more than
20%
that.
I'll
thinks,
bet it's
yeah.
over 10.
Okay, let's say that 30% loves it.
Okay.
And then there's about 30% that hates it. And then 40% thinks it's kind of entertaining, but they lose a little respect for you.
I think your numbers are off.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that breakdown.
I think 90% enjoy watching it, and a significant amount agree with you that the last part that you said is probably true as well. But all in all, everybody enjoys watching it. I'm enjoying listening to it.
Most
I'm right
important,
next to it.
Phil, I absolutely enjoy doing it to you. That's what's important, isn't it?
See that I appreciate.
Raise the pot.
Harlow re-raises to 24 grand.
Russ has just put in a 4th bet on this hand.
But it's definitely not personal. I really respect you as a person.
Tony folds.
And as a human being, as a family man, I respect you a lot. I think you're out of line with the way you perceive yourself as a poker player, and I think you're wrong.
Will we see a 5th bet from Jason?
Anyway, let's move on to the next part. You're getting dribbled away. That's the main thing.
Mercier re-raises to 51,000.
Jason's just made a bet for half of Russ's entire stack. Even if Russ recognizes it, he's put a lot of money into this pot already. Generally, once you 4-bet, you're pot committed. If he was going to fold to a 5-bet, he would have been better off calling the 3-bet and seeing a flop.
Of course I'm gonna bet. I had top pair with a big kicker, just like last time against him.
Wow, 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 wow.
Russ folds.
Did you lay down kings? No. Ace king?
Tony's even more annoying when he's right.
9-6-8.
Everyone but Antonio flops an up and down straight draw.
Hellmuth checks. Harlow checks. Esfandiari checks.
Jason has flopped huge with top pair to go with his straight draw.
And fires 1,200. Hellmuth calls.
Russ has the best draw, which gives him incredible implied odds for hitting the 10.
Russ is in. Antonio's out. So he lost one from the flop to the turn, which is the tray of diamonds. Phil checks. Harlow checks.
And while Phil and Russ both missed their draws, Jason's got trusty top pair to fall back on.
Mercier bets 3,800. That gets Phil out of here.
Russ still with an up and down draw.
He calls.
Not a bad call. Wants to see one more card.
The river, the queen of hearts.
Russ is completely whiffed. One would expect he'd just shut it down now and check.
No, he fires 8 grand.
This bet looks mighty strong coming from a guy who makes donut runs for a living.
I don't know what I'm thinking.
Jason lays down the best hand. And a nice pot won by the man who drives a bakery delivery truck.
And he shows the bluff.
Luffy.
Russ raised. Antonio calls. Tony's out. Phil's in. The flop. 5-4-6. Bottom 2 pair for Phil. Antonio checks. Hellmuth checks.
That's a pretty wet board. Typically, you'd want to bet there and charge anyone to draw, so I'm not sure why Phil checked. Russ has 2 overs and a gut shot.
And fires 5 grand. That gets Antonio out. Phil calls.
Russ's hand is exactly the kind you'd want to charge to draw.
3 of clubs on the turn. This time Phil leads out, betting 8,000.
That's one of the cards Phil wouldn't want to see. That 3 makes a bunch of straight draws. Bad turn comes off, and now Phil bets.
Here, you got to pay this off. Cheap on the river. I'll be cheap. If you call this, my river bet's only going to be... I won't bet more than 10,000 on the river, okay? If you call this. I promise. I won't bet more than 10 on the river.
Russ's hesitation may have tipped Phil off. He seems pretty confident about his hand.
Russ raises to 20 grand.
Russ is trying to rep the straight.
How much do you have left?
Something wrong with Phil's chair?
Yeah, Tony put electric shock in it. Phil calls.
Good attempt by Russ, but either Phil has the right read or he's trying to suck out.
The river, the 4 of hearts, giving Phil a full house.
We'll find out how good Phil's read was by how big he bets here. If he bets huge, that means he put Russ on the straight. If he bets small, he's hoping Russ will call him light.
I'm all in. 40,000, 900.
Phil's all in.
After all that, Russ is not making this call with 9 high.
And he doesn't.
God dang it all. Why didn't I check? Everything. I didn't check it. What was I thinking?
Pocket pair for Russ.
Pot.
Raises to 7,200. Back to Phil.
Phil knows Russ's range is pretty wide at this point.
How much more do you have?
A little less than 50,000 remaining for Russ. Phil calls and gives him the WWE stare down.
He's got 11 intercontinental belts.
The flop, 10-6 deuce, 3 clubs. Hellmuth checks the nut flush draw.
Russ has the best hand, but Phil does have the better draws and a decent shot of hitting one of his outs. A bet here from Russ, and these two could get it all in. No way Phil could fold 2 overs in the nut flush draw with 2 cards to come.
Harlow checks. The turn gives Russ a set.
And that's basically a 1-outer. The 8 of clubs would have made Phil's flush. The 8 kills Phil's overcards outs as well.
Hellmuth, chips in hand, leads out to 5,500.
Even though Russ was already ahead in this hand, this 8 will probably give him the confidence he needs to see it through to the end.
Gotta take a chance sometime.
I'm supposed to think you're weak, right? Because you're talking?
Didn't you read his book?
I won't bet more than 9,000 on the river if you call. If you raise, it's different.
Phil's giving him the same song and dance as before.
It's 54 or 55?
5,500.
I'm all in.
All in.
Russ Harlow, all in.
Russ just told Phil that song and dance is about as fresh as the Macarena.
Wow. Well, if he would have bet the flop, I would have shipped it right away.
Russ is doing a great job of not giving anything away.
Wow, what if I call him and he shows me ace-queen, which I can't even beat?
If you just want to get TV time.
Buddy, what do you have? I'm thinking about calling you with ace-high. You like that? You want me in there or not?
I may watch too much Law & Order, but you don't have to answer that.
See, you potted it before the flop.
Here we go again.
It's just ridiculous.
What's ridiculous?
I mean, just make a decision, you know? Like, there's other people in the game, too. You're a professional player playing against a loose cannon. I mean...
now I'm trying to make a decision for 43,000. Can you just shut the up? Call
Are you a
floor man.
professional player?
Call floor man.
Floor.
You're insulting everyone. I mean, we're here, we want to play, too.
I'm right in the middle of making a big decision right now, and he's completely out of line here. So I
think he's completely out of line because he's been taking forever to make a decision. Against an amateur player coming in here as the best player in the world, taking 15 minutes to make a decision.
I haven't taken 15 minutes. You want to bet on that?
Well, you will. If
You're
that's
so
why
out of
I'm
line.
talking
You know,
about it.
your etiquette's horrible. Stay out of this.
Gentlemen,
Stay out.
Okay.
Please.
Let him make a decision. We're gonna,
Yeah, let's hear your ruling.
We're going to put you on the clock right now. You got a minute and 10 seconds.
That's your ruling?
Right. You're going to let him make his play.
I hope you're proud of yourself, Tony.
Story checks out.
You got a pair?
Look, Phil, he's a father of 3. Russ is used to tuning out obnoxious noise.
If you were going to bluff, why not bluff the flop?
Phil folds. And those are tears of joy. There's only 5 hands left. Time is running out for him to do any damage. Russ raises to 2,000. King, queen. Antonio calls. Jason calls. Phil raises to 11-2.
Hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your husbands too, because they're raising everybody out here.
How much?
9,200 more.
Might as well give it to me.
Phil limp re-raised in order to isolate the cannon. At this point, I don't think Russ has much of a choice.
He calls. Antonio folds.
Call.
So's Jason.
Heads up.
We just saw these two dance a few moments ago. Looks like they're ready for their next song.
King 5 king, trip kings for Harlow.
Russ has crushed this flop.
Hellmuth checks.
Russ should bet here to try to get some value. He doesn't have a lot of chips or a lot of time. He's Probably doing everything he can to not jump out of his seat. One reason why playing on the internet's better.
He bets 20,000.
How much you have left? 45 total, gets them all in.
Phil puts Harlow all in.
No chance he's folding. I think he's just taking a moment to soak it all in.
And Russ calls.
Wow.
Wow.
That's the way it's been going for me.
That's sick. That's the worst.
I think he just got over 100.
He will if his hand holds up.
Phil is drawing virtually
Guy
dead.
just got over 100. He just has to dodge 2 more hands and come back to mine. So sick.
I'm glad I hit it to 5.
What are you thinking? Are you thinking backdoor flush?
What do you mean, what am I thinking? He has to move in, right? I mean, he
Oh, I mean, you can't move in unless he has a hand. I mean,
how much?
10, 20, 30, 40, 40.
What do you mean, what am I thinking? What the I mean, well, I got in, there's 30,000 in there or whatever. I mean, I'm playing no matter what. I have to give him a chance to bluff off his money. That's the only reason I check.
Phil can only hit running aces or running hearts.
you want insurance here?
So brutal. What a day.
There's some way we can
The
insure
guy
it.
folded so many hands, just waited, and then Phil Hellmuth just doubles them up. You know, no problem.
Instead of like betting 5, and you could just bet 5 and fold. You could put 45 in.
Russ is picturing driving his kids around in that new minivan.
The turn. It's a 6, and Russ has a profit.
Why would he bet 20,000? It doesn't make any sense. If he had a king, why would he bet 20,000?
Because he knows his opponent will ship it with ace high, you know? That was deep love kid, you know? High tech.
46. He's over now, right? I don't know. I was just. He's got like 110. He's got like 110.
I needed that. Well done. Well done, man.
After the dust settled, Russell Harlow ended up with a $16,000 score, but he wasn't satisfied. Unfortunately, when he came back next week, his 10s ran into Barry Greenstein's aces, and he left with 0.